Open up the door, it's Dave!
Who?
Dave! D-A-V-E!
Dave?
Right, man, Dave.
Dave's not here.
A couple of days ago, a friend of mine asked me about the Earned Income Credit, the EV tax credit that's available from the IRS when you buy a new EV, new electric vehicle. And he and I got to talking about it a little bit, and we kind of expressed our own opinions and what we knew and what we thought we knew and whatever. But I think both of us realized that we didn't know as much as we thought we did. And then I noticed that someone had posted a comment to one of my videos, my last video, about buying the Model Y, and had said something about the EV tax credit. And it made me realize that I think a lot of people are very confused about what the EV tax credit is, how it works, and what goes on with it. So I thought I'd take a couple of minutes today and just talk about that for a minute. Now, to be fair, I am not a tax attorney. I'm not a tax accountant. I don't do anything like that. I am not providing any advice to you whatsoever. This is just general knowledge kinds of things. And I encourage you to, if you have a lot of questions specific to how this works, and you have questions about whether you qualify, you don't qualify based on various factors, I would suggest that you hire an accountant to go through it with you. If you know one, that's great. They can help you kind of figure it out. There's a lot of math in here that's very, very confusing as far as that goes. And it's not as simple as just saying, oh, I qualify for the tax credit because of this or that. It's not quite that easy. And because it's the IRS and Congress was involved in making rules, it's even more complicated. So it's not as simple as what it seems. But let me try and lay out some basics for you just so you get a feel for how it works, okay? So, and the caveat I'll give you is that your mileage may vary. See what I did there? Anyway, the idea is that you get the tax credit. It's a tax credit against your tax burden. So if you're paying more than $7,500 in taxes, again, with some rules around it and whatever, you can take advantage of the full $7,500 in a tax credit, so your tax burden will be lowered. It's kind of complicated, but it works like that. So you have to be paying more than $7,500 in taxes to take advantage of it in the first place. Now, maybe you could take advantage of some portion of it, and that may still work for you. You have to kind of do the math to figure out what works for you and how this will work. It's not an apples-to-apples comparison. It's not like you're getting $7,500 off of the car. That's not the way this works. It's $7,500 back in a tax credit when you pay your taxes next year. So just kind of keep that in mind as you think about how this works and how this comes together. So that's the basics of it, right? That's the way it works. When I bought my Model 3 a couple of years ago, my Model 3 had already been reduced to $3,750 in tax credit, because the way the rules worked at that point, you could only get half of the maximum tax credit because Tesla had sold X number of cars. So it worked out for me to my advantage. I paid enough in taxes in that $3,750 that I could take advantage of it, that full $3,750. I could not take advantage of the full $7,500. It wasn't going to work for me. So the $3,750 was kind of the perfect sweet spot for me. So it helped in my taxes, but didn't help with the price of the car. So that's why even when I talk about the price of the car, I didn't include that in any of the discussions, because that was sort of money I got back later, but didn't really affect the price of the car. This year, my financial situation is maybe a little different, and I believe that I'll be able to take advantage of the full $7,500 in a tax credit next year when I pay my tax, when I file my taxes and deal with the outcomes. So for me, this actually does work and does make sense. This is not the case for everyone. And again, if you think it might or don't think it will, you should go and check with a tax attorney or some sort of accountant to figure out whether it's going to work for you. So that's the basics of it, right? You get a tax credit on your taxes the following year. So it kind of works to your advantage for a while, in a way. And the interesting part is, so you have this tax credit that you can take. And the way the government set it back up was, they said January 1st of 2023, every car that met certain criteria, and that criteria was the threshold for the price based on the type of car, but the types of car were a little strange, so it didn't really fit everything, based on the number of kilowatt hours the battery can hold, and then also based on your income. So those three factors were the primary factors in determining if you can take advantage of the $7,500. So given that, it's actually not as hard as it will be in the future when they change the rules. But here's the thing, Tesla decided that the way the rules were set up, it had to do with whether you had a 5 or 7 seat Model Y, whether your car qualified or not for the tax credit. And the way the government set up the thresholds for the different things were to say it was, whether it was an SUV or a crossover or whatever it was, you had to have spent at least, I think it was $55,000 was the threshold, and Tesla Model Ys were above that price. So Tesla decided to reduce the price of the Model Y to be able to get people to move more cars and get people to sell, to buy the cars so they could actually sell more and take them off the lot and have more, at the bottom line, their stock price would go up and be affected because they would sell more cars. And they would only take a small reduction in the price. So that's why they reduced the price. Now, since then, the government has come back and said, hey, we're going to change the rules slightly so that the Tesla at the higher price point would still qualify. So Tesla will bring the price back up. In fact, they brought it up a little bit right off the bat, but you'll see the price creep back up as a result of that. I'm sure of it. So it's just interesting the way that the government kind of changed the rules and made it a little different, and it was a little more complicated to figure out what the price point would be. So that's kind of the nutshell piece of what happened with Tesla. Now, the other part is, at some point, so from January to March, they said, okay, that's going to be the rules. The rules will just be the rules. Whatever we set up is going to be that. We're going to refine the rules sometime in March. Now, you know that the government always takes time to figure out what the rules are going to be exactly, to lay it out there and, implement it at some point. So probably, and again, we don't know, the new rules won't take effect until probably the end of March, probably. But we don't know that for sure. So the new rules, we know that a couple of things, they're going to set some new thresholds as far as like the price points for cars. They're also going to set some new guidelines in terms of income levels, the kilowatt hours, whether the car is manufactured in the United States or not, whether the battery is manufactured in the United States or not. So some cars will only qualify for $3,750, half of it, because their batteries are not produced here. Some cars will qualify for all of it. And depending on the price points, it may have some other impacts. So stay tuned, because it's not clear what's going to happen later with the price points of the cars and whether you qualify for the tax credit or not. And again, if they change the income level too, which they could do, you may not qualify at that point too. So if you're looking to buy a car later, you may not have the ability, or you may be better able to buy a car depending on your financial situation. So you have to kind of pay attention to what the rules are at that point in time when you're buying the car and see what works for you. And again, talk to a tax accountant, talk to someone who's an accountant, talk to a tax attorney, someone who can help you understand what the financial picture you're in specifically versus what the rules are. And they may not even know, because right now the rules are a little loosey-goosey. They'll probably tighten up. By the time we get to summer, certainly we'll have a pretty good sense of it. But remember that it's a tax credit. So you're only getting the credit if you pay that amount in taxes. And there's other criteria around it too, but essentially that's it, right? You have to kind of remember that as far as that goes. So you lower your tax burden as a result of getting the car. It's not really a discount on the car. It's not really something that you're getting better. It's just that you're getting a tax credit later, which can work to your advantage depending on how your financial picture is and what taxes you pay and whatever things you do. It may help you in some way to have that $7,500 in a tax credit. It depends. So that's just something I wanted to share, because it's very confusing. And like I said, as soon as the IRS gets involved and Congress gets involved and these car manufacturers, they're just trying to move cars. So they're trying to do what they can to move cars, and they make it more confusing in some ways because they can't answer questions for you totally. They can generally answer them, but they can't actually answer the questions because they don't always know the answers. And the rules are changing all the time anyway. So I highly recommend that you read what the IRS has out there. I'll put a link to the IRS webpage below in the comments so you can see what they say about it, just so you have some idea. Just think about what it means. And I wish everyone good luck, and I hope that you're able to get the car that you want, whatever it is, whether it's a Tesla or whether it's some other Kia or a BMW for that matter, or a Volkswagen, whatever it is that you get. I hope you're able to get the car you want and find the price point that works, the mileage that works, all these things. Look, I like my Tesla, and I'm buying another Tesla, but I'm not totally a saint for Tesla saying, hey, you have to buy a Tesla, it's the greatest car ever. There are things that I really, really like about it, and there are some things that I think are just okay. So, you have to decide what works for you, and I highly recommend that you go out there and do a little research on these cars. Go test drive them. take them out on the road, see what you think. You know, see what you think when you look at the screens and the way the navigation works and the way it tells you about the battery health, those kinds of things. You'll learn a lot very quickly by just kind of playing with it and watching videos. Lots of people review these cars, and you get a sense of it kind of quickly, what they're like and some of the things that you want. Stepping up to an EV, there is a learning curve. There's always a learning curve. So just make sure that you're aware of that too, that there's some things that are different. It's great, but there are some things that are definitely different. Anyway, I hope that helps you just a little bit, and have a great day, everyone. See you around.
What's your point, David?